Thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really happy to have you.
Thank you.
We said this was going to happen. I didn't know it was going to be this. I know we were going to get the exclusive, but we did say that we were going to do a part 2. So this is officially the part 2.
Yes.
The last interview, the clips that we put on social kind of had a viral moment.
Yeah.
Like, we got a lot of, Women of Tomorrow got a lot of DMs. I think the analytics showed it was shared like tens of thousands of times. So I'm so grateful. I'm super grateful that we had that moment, that we made it happen that day, and then you were just so authentic, and you just brought so much wisdom to our viewers, and then you shared it with yours. So thank you.
No, thank you. I think that was my first experience allowing like the world kind of inside, because I think I am very private while also still being authentic.
Yeah.
So I think that was a good moment that we all shared, and I definitely felt like, okay, let's just keep this space and this conversation in this way. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this is the moment.
Yes.
Non-binary.
Yes.
And Women of Tomorrow has the exclusive.
And
Tell me. First of all, where did the name come from, and why the name non-binary?
So I actually started with the pants.
Okay.
And when I went in with the pants, anytime that I get dressed, I always go for a masculine and feminine dynamic within the garment. And so I felt like within the brand, I needed things that I would personally go out and wear every single day, and not just on special occasion days.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, what can I do to create that inclusion for myself and others that also are similar to me, that I didn't want a gender role specified within the clothing. I wanted you to be able to see it and say, oh wow, I could see a man in this, I could see a woman in this, I could see a transgender in this, I could see whomever wanted to identify in the clothing and felt compelled to wear it. I wanted them to feel seen and understood, and also just kind of create that experience for myself. And I was trying to think of a name that was dual, like something that was able to be a universal message while also still driving the message of what I wanted, because I wanted to openly express my compassion and understanding for the LGBTQ community, and understand like that the garments that I make are a part of the purpose within myself as well. I am obviously a part of the community. So I just wanted women and men and anybody that is a part of the community or identifies as whomever to just feel valued. So non-binary came about, and as I started to build the collection, I was excited because I was able to see that somebody felt drawn to something within the piece, whether it would be a man, a woman. I have a lot of mutually gay friends that did not see like a specific garment and was like, oh, this is for a woman or this is for a man. But they were able to see, just the inclusion within both, which I appreciated. So I felt like the direction for this collection was to just bring in that inclusivity within the brand. Like, we support you. And I am also, a part of the community, and I wanted to just create that in fashion. Not that it does not exist, but that I wanted to see it more in a way that I didn't feel like I had to go to a specific section to get that. So on the website, as you see, it's not specified men's, women's. It's literally just, this is the collection, this is here for you. And I want to see it on everybody, because I saw Fashion Week last year, I saw a lot of men pull off women's garments, and I was like, bitch, I need to step my shit up. Like, step my shit up. You are eating me up.
There's a lot of cuts.
A lot of cuts. And I was just like, eat. So I wanted that. I also wanted that experience for myself within this Fashion Week. I wanted to see them eat it up. Like, do your thing.
They're going to.
Yeah, I'm excited. Like, I'm honestly looking forward to the people that are just gonna jump out there and dive in and really just feel themselves, because I did have that experience with my previous collections. I just wanted in this collection everybody to feel like it was something for them, and not that they had to create certain measurements or whichever the case may be. So I was very, very specific with the sizing guide to accommodate everybody. So throughout the collection, as we roll out, you will see that there is something for everybody.
Got it.
So this is just the beginning.
I know that you mentioned that you didn't want it to just be something that you wore on a special occasion,
Yeah.
but you were still able to make it statement pieces. Like these are statement pieces that can be interchanged and worn every day, but you could still wear it on the red carpet. You could still wear it to the VMAs. You could still wear it anyway.
Exactly.
And it looks comfy.
Yes, and when I say the soft leather, I went through several phases of just trying to identify what specific leather I wanted, because I felt like when you have a leather piece, the leather piece in your closet is timeless. And so I wanted to make sure that the garments with age remained timeless, because I think that 10 years down the line when we're coming out of Paris and you're able to still have that same garment, it still has that same timelessness, the cuts, the detailing, the stitching, everything just gives like, bitch, you've been coming, you know? So,
okay, so what I was going to ask was, as you were talking about, like, some of your friends or colleagues were seeing the collection as you were producing it. Were they giving their input? Do you listen to that in the creation process?
So, it's funny that you asked me that. I have learned that I think that it's better for me to have a direct vision when I'm creating, because sometimes God gives you a gift and he gives you a message, and sometimes people aren't believers in that message until they see what God can do through your message. So it's almost as if I can go to somebody that maybe does not have the gift of creating and say, like, what do you think about this? And they may not see it, but then God is like, but there's something that I gave in you for you to deliver that message, for them to see that there's something in somebody else that needs to be seen, and you can see that at that moment. So
you
drive
carry
that vision.
out.
So carry that vision out. So usually in my creative process, I'm extremely private, because I just find that I don't have limits when I create. Like, I know when I'm creating, like, this is something. Like, this is something that I can feel something from this. And everybody can't always feel that initial thing until things are kind of all the way put together. So I can see a piece of garment in a scrap piece of fabric and see something, but sometimes people need to see the end result of something in order to believe in it. So I think that sharing is very sacred. Towards the end, when things are kind of made up and samples are made, I may share it with somebody very intimate to me, but it's really, really rare that I do. And even like my best friend at times, she'll be like, bitch, let me see. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, because it's just like a baby. You have to protect it, because not even protect it from outside energy, but just that you get the message, you know, like God is speaking to you. He chose you for this message. So it's really like, I want to bring out everything that I'm supposed to within this message, and I want to go through all of the emotions, and I want to go through all of the feelings that I have about it, and I want to keep a clarity towards what I'm doing and where I'm going with it, because sometimes I may wake up and I'll be like, I hate this, and then, for instance, this hat. I did not like this hat when I first created it. And I actually asked social media before I dropped, like, what do you think of this? And the hundreds of responses that I got.
I definitely said yes. I remember.
And I was like, wow, I'm not seeing myself clear. You know what I mean? Because I'm grateful that, you know, people convinced me to, because that was one of those moments where having that privacy would have held me back in that way. But when I had a conversation with somebody also in the industry, they had just told me, like, when you speak to people about your gifts, it needs to be people that are walking further along in their gifts than you. Because when you take advice from others, it is something that naturally kind of sticks with you and it resonates. And it's like, some things are chosen for you, and those that are chosen will understand, but those that are not can't always understand until later in the line where they're like, wow, okay, it makes sense. I get it. I get what was being done here. But sometimes when you're the futuristic person, like, you just have to drive the vision the whole way through. Yeah. So a lot of times I'm really private, like, I don't play about that. Like,
no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. I definitely have dealt with that in the past, just too many voices.
Too many voices. It shifts your perspective when you go into it. I read a book, Conversations with God. That was the name of the book.
Okay.
And it's a phenomenal way of interpreting how you receive messages, because obviously, you know, the mind is flesh. And so when you're spiritually, like, involved in purposeful work, you are remembering what you were positioned for. At that point, you're doing ancestral work, you're doing, like, work that's been called on your life. Like, you're understanding the messages that were already written for you. But when you are working outside of God's grace, and you are kind of working within your personal decisions and your choices, you find that you always come back to the initial place that you began, but it's just that you had to take that journey to understand and trust yourself and your intuition in what it is. Because if you notice, like children have the answers and the messages at their young age.
Yeah.
If you really know a child and you're genuinely in a healthy relationship with children, children will tell you things that adults won't interpret because they have natural innocent eyes, but they look at the age and think, he's still, so-and-so, like I don't think much of it. But those that understand.
As children, you're like the closest to your intuition.
Exactly, because you're not jaded by life. You're not jaded by the matrix. You're not jaded by anything. All you have at that moment is what God
you were born with.
Yeah. So I really think that it's also another reason why I think I love children so much, because I think that God uses them as vessels to, even myself, like I was a very private child. I was just very isolated, very quiet. I was never quiet when it came to like my expressions. My expressions were always very dramatic, yes. So now as an adult, you see this is just blossoming, which is why I think like intentional parenting is so important.
And so you're able to be that child, you probably create a lot from that childlike
the inner
space,
child.
that childlike space.
Absolutely.
When I first started designing, it was always about, it really all just came from necessity for me. It was just like I saw something in my head and I was like, I don't see it in the stores, I gotta make it. For you, like what led you to start designing, and then what was the one inspiration moment for non-binary? Like I know you saw the runway and you were like, oh, they're eating it up, let me get my life, but was there a day when it clicked?
Yes, honestly, and it didn't come from a like aesthetically pleasing moment. It actually came from having my back against the wall. Like I had a season where I was working with, certain teams, and I had to come out of pocket like $26,000 in returns because I had to recall a lot of production. And for me, it was really defeating because I felt like I had finally kind of set myself forward in a direction, and then it felt like 10 steps back. And I knew that it wasn't 10 steps back, but I just understood that God was preparing me for position, because I think that I needed a moment to go further along than what I was doing. I kind of was trying to bring people with me that I think God had shown me it's time to move on and go into a different direction. And so with that happening, it was like, okay, this is the big red flag. Like if you don't get it on this point, like this is only going to expand bigger. And at the end of the day, it's your name, it's your brand. Like this is all a reflection of you. So I had a moment where I didn't design for at least like a month or two. So I'm a person that when I love something, I pour into that thing every single day, like every single day. And I felt like God was telling me that I needed to take a moment to rest. And that was something that I didn't incorporate until I began to realize how resting was inspiring me more than working was inspiring me. So while I was choosing to rest, I went out by the water. And I think I just had a moment of like, sometimes people look at the success in others at the end where it's like they've made it or they've created something that is admirable in the end, and they don't recognize how it's the beginning phases of your creation that are the gift. The end is just the multiplication of the gift. So I think I had to go back to pen and paper and really just like go back to that inner child me and be like, you've always had it. Like this $26,000 that came and went in this position here is gonna come and go, it's gonna come back again, but you're always gonna have your gift. So tap back into your gift. And when I tapped back into my gift that day, it was just like, shit was just coming. And I was just like, when I could feel it, I know that I have something. And that was the day where I felt it. And I think that for me, it's important for others to feel that same thing when they wear a garment of mine or when they see anything from me, because I do want that emotion to translate. Like, yeah, my back was up against the wall. I was getting shit out the mud, because it doesn't matter how much or how successful you are. Things like that hurt. Yeah, they happen, they hurt. You can feel them. Like, this is something that I'm passionate about. This is the way that I get my bread and butter. But aside from that, like, this is just what I value. Like, this is my purpose. So I feel like I needed that moment to I didn't hit the ground. I just think that I needed that moment for my ego to tap into my soul and realize that regardless of whatever happens, like if nobody liked this collection, I was most proud that I fought for the worth that I was going for, that I fought for the direction of the team that I wanted, that I fought for the vision that I saw, and that I just created the inclusion within the community that I felt like needed a voice and needed that structure. So I think that when I began to create that day, I didn't think as big as what it has turned into now. But I think that with me not making it work and me making it living, it allowed it to be something that can now be my work. So in me saying that, it's really like, as I began to focus on myself and really rest and just become happy and just tap back into everything that mattered to me, and it wasn't just like, we need to prioritize the business every single day, but I just prioritized, Arraya needs to be inspired. Like, Arraya needs to live and see something, because I don't want to just be creating from this one place of love or this one place of an experience. I want to be creating from several experiences. I want to create from several perspectives and several eyes, not just my own. So I think why it has been received how it has is because I've made it intentional for myself to take off my own perspective and lens at that time and begin to just see through the lens of others and see like, okay, well, what is something that somebody else may need? And I think that that's what allowed the versatility of the collection to come about, was just considering like, okay, but you want this when you get dressed, but what does somebody else look for? You know, and realizing like, great, this is a great marketing point, but also like, this is a moment, like that's a fashion moment for somebody. And I wanted moments outside of my moments in my closet to be had. So.
And you were able to do that because you actually rested.
The simplicity of things are not little. Like, little things matter more than the big things sometimes, because the little things are the intricate details that allow the big things to be. It begins with A. It doesn't just start at Z. It began with A, and then the alphabet became about. So it's like always remembering that that point, that starting point, that beginning point, that moment of getting out the mud, that moment is more beneficial and pivotal than the moment when you have so many options and it's now insignificant to which one you choose, because it taught me to appreciate my process. I think I, throughout the year, was learning, appreciate the process, and I was, but I think that process, because I completely rebranded. I literally scratched everything from the site. I took every garment that I had down. I completely went in a new direction with fabric. I completely went with new teams. I completely opened up new doors for just what I was even creating or willing to create and have certain conversations. And I think that I would have never done that had I not gotten shit out the mud. So,
it was a blessing.
Yeah,
it was a blessing.
Everything's a blessing.
We're just talking about how, I know I was super, like, when I saw the images that you released, I was just like, they were stunning. They were just like breathtaking. Like, they were so intentional. Like, that's what I get from you. I always got that from you. And then after meeting you and then seeing what you really think about in a real life, I'm like, okay, so now it just adds to that. And then the fact that I was just like driving down the street and saw you, I'm like, that's Arraya. I think at first said, that's Glamour Blueprint. Yeah. And then I was like, let's turn the block. I was like, I'm gonna say hi. And then we're here, and then the collection. You had such a great response to the video and to the images. And how did it feel?
I think for me, it felt good to finally get that out, because I actually wrote that treatment September 16th last year. And I did not know that I was actually manifesting that into my life, because it was a real life experience that happened. Obviously, I exaggerated in certain points when I dropped the ticket and things like that. That wasn't a real life moment. But the moment of somebody admiring me and I am not knowing that they're admiring me, and like meeting that person, having that experience and feeling like, wow, like this is like a very passionate connection. I think that for me, I didn't necessarily go into the response expecting anybody to really grasp the way that they did, but they did, because I think that Mike, who is my videographer and also one of my really great friends, he's amazing with cinematic storylines. So his way of just piecing everything together and myself together, they just have a chemistry. Like, it's just a certain chemistry that there's not necessarily like you're creative directing this or this is this, but more of just like we understand each other, we understand each other's perspective with things. We get where we are creating this story from. And I think that with everybody's responses to how beautiful and how poetic it was, I think that touched me, because I wanted people to understand, like, it wasn't just a fashion drop, like it was definitely telling a full story, and not even just a story to express, real life experiences, but just a story to express that for me, I want anybody that experiences my brand to just value what it means to learn and to really just become passionate about whatever, not even just like a specific lane, but just in general. Because myself, if I want to know, I'm going to know. Like, I'm going to pick up a book tomorrow. If I want to be into science, I'm deep diving. If I want to be into math, I'm deep diving. Because I think that versatility is what sets you apart. I think people categorize themselves and they stick themselves in boxes, and I don't ever want to be boxed in. I don't want anybody to ever look at me and say, oh, she just designs. No, I don't.
Because it's what you are, not what you do.
So you're definitely going to see that timeless, very calm, natural vibe from me, this collection. So I think that a lot of people were used to me being very out there when it came to fabrics, colors, and things like that. And in this collection, I wanted a very timeless, classy, and universal colorway. So you'll see sage, you'll see gray, you'll see black, you're gonna see white. I absolutely love white, so I'm so excited for that. You're gonna see another pop of an orange color. So I think that this colorway is, I don't wanna say it's my favorite, but I will say that the intentionality of each detail has created very, very significant pieces.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So you're actually excited about this collection.
Yes.
Last time we talked, you're like, sometimes when the collection comes out, you're like already
I'm bored. I'm over it.
And not this collection.
No. And you know what's crazy is my best friend was with me when I got the samples, and I think her being over the moon helped me see myself clearer.
Got it.
Because again, when you're in something for so long, like, it's basically like being in a bubble, because that's basically what I was. So you have about 6 or 7 months there where you're in a bubble and you're just creating, right? And you get just used to seeing it. You're not able to identify how significant something has become, because it's become a norm to you. Just like even with a person, you deal with a person, they become not normal in a sense of their gifts change, but you're just used to them. You have a certain safety with them. I grow to have a certain safety with my pieces that I think, when I will say this, when I put on the garments from the sample, I knew that I was on the right track. Like, I just finally had that experience of, you've worked so hard, like you wanted this so bad. And I've always wanted to be in this place. Like, I always wanted the pieces to begin here. But it took time. It took time for me to find the right people. It took time for me to have the flexibility to be able to produce at the level that I'm producing and give the quality that I wanted.
Yeah.
I also think that it was necessary for me to have that risk element to myself where I wasn't overthinking it, and I was just like, push the limit, regardless if anybody understands what you're doing. Push this limit. Be willing enough to want to create for a man and a woman, or whomever they identify as. Be willing enough to see your vision all the way through and understand that the details that you're putting in are going to translate, and not overthink how you should have that spoken of, but let it speak for itself. I needed that moment within my journey. So when I got to this collection, when I had it in my office, like on my racks, and I was like looking at it, I was like, yeah, this is good. And then when I finally was like wearing the pieces, and I just was getting the responses from people, and they were able to see what I put in intentionally, I just really felt like it was God. To me, creation is the closest thing to God. The closer that I got to God, the better that my creation became. I think that what helped me the most was, while I was building this collection towards the end, which is when the treatments for everything started to come together, which is when the photo shoot started to come together, and I was in alignment with my best friend at the time to put out the visual with her album being able to be incorporated. I think fasting did it because I went on a no meat, no carbs, no sugar, just water, just genuine fresh herbs, vegetables, fruit for 31 days. And it was just like 5 days a week working out. I'm locked in. And I just found that God was showing me, like, you're remembering everything that you already had. Like, I already had my best friend. I already had, you know, her album was already out. I already had the storyline that I was going for with the treatment. I already had the pieces here and ready. All I needed was to just show up and say, okay, you know what? If today this camera is fucked up, like, we're still filming with whatever cameras that's on set there, even if it's our phones, because that's how it's meant to be. I needed that mindset, and I didn't have that before. And when I got into that mindset, everything pieced together, even to the photo shoot. When I walked in and I booked the studio, I walked in, there was a yellow fan. Yellow is my favorite color. I'm like, okay, we're using this. There was lighting in the background. I was like, we're using this. I was in the bathroom and those mirrors were in there. And I was like, oh, we're using these, absolutely. And I just genuinely just started pulling shit together. Like, this is what this is gonna be. I always wrote about having the VHS camera and recording in this way. And I think that I wanted God to incorporate the memories for me in my experience that I would be proud of, that I would feel like your inner child is happy. And knowing that I was able to just incorporate all of those things in the shoot, and it happened so organically with no pressure. It was just genuine, like, this is what we're doing, you're showing up. I had great people around me in the room that were able to, you know, be my second eye and see the same vision that I saw. No questions about anything. It just flowed. And even with the visual just flowed. It was simple. Like, the night of New Year's Eve is actually when I shot the visual, which is when you saw me. And again, I had that visual for 6 months before that. So
Crazy.
It's just crazy that, I literally called my videographer like, Mike, we have to shoot. Oh, he's walking in.